Are we on?
We're live.
Thank you. I want to welcome everybody to our December Police Commission meeting. And I hope everyone had a festive Thanksgiving. And also, as we won't be seeing each other, I hope everyone has a great upcoming holiday seasons, however you plan on celebrating in your own way. I'm going to go right off the bat, as we do, and review what we went over last month. And all I'm doing is bullet points. So to kind of let you know where we've been at, we had our intro to hiring. Before I even go there, I want to make sure everyone is reviewing the agenda. Does everyone have their agenda to review? And is everybody okay with the agenda that you have before you? And at this time, Jeremy, do you have anybody as far as public comments?
No, not at this time.
And if so, they would put their hands up on the meeting, correct?
Correct. No hands raised.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead into, go back to where I was at on review the agenda. We had the previous, I mean, we're going over the previous agenda that we had. We had the intro to hiring and recruitment team here, and that was with Sergeant Maloney. I want to thank him for his presence. And if you all remember, we had about 10 guests from the recruitment team that were with us, that were available. We had some questions and so forth. I want to thank them for their time with us. The second thing we went over last month was the arrest policy 300, and that was with Sergeant Smith and Lieutenant San Miguel. I want to thank them for going over that policy with us. Then we went, and next thing we did was the bias crimes policy 304, and that was with Sergeant Venji. I want to thank Sergeant Venji for going over that with us. And then we had a pepper ball command directive update, and Jeremy assisted us with any information that we had on the chief's behalf. If we don't have any public comment, I want to let everyone know that I have two excused absences tonight. I want to wish Maisie, Commissioner Davis is in the ER now, and I want to just let us know that we're thinking about her. And Commissioner Robertson is doing her last finals right now, so she's dealing with that. And obviously, education and degrees and all that stuff is really important. But those are the two approved absences that I have my way, by way of emails and so forth. As far as our liaison reports, I'm going to start off with one of my favorite doctors, Dr. Garcia. Can you go ahead?
Sure. So CRB is easy this month because we did not meet this month.
Commissioner Coulibaly, do you have any information on the Human Rights Commission?
The Human Rights Commission will be sending out a statement tomorrow for the International Human Rights Day. Other than that, we do not meet in December.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ye, do you have any information for us today?
I don't think I have anything to report back, or I don't know if Alan has something that he can think of. He says no, so I think we're good. Thank you though. Okay, so, but I'm gonna give you the opportunity, Councilor Zelinka, can you have anything to share?
No, not really, except for a little bit of an update on the ad hoc committee on police policy, that the group of the city manager, the police auditor, and the Judge Gill, are working to organize all of the different recommendations that came out of that group, and probably have that back to us sometime after the first of the year to look at.
And Jeremy, I just got a note that our connection is going in and out. Is anyone else experiencing that on our connection?
I'm not seeing it here.
No,
saw
I
the
think that's
message.
just a silver issue.
Okay. Okay.
Distract electricity from your beard, Silver.
Right. Okay, I'm going to go now into commissioner comments, and I will begin with our vice chair, Silverio Bogart.
Yes, hello. I'm grateful to be here, and that's it.
Commissioner Nguyen.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on Dallas's well wishes for everyone for, the holidays. So happy holidays to all of you, and be safe.
Commissioner Shivers.
Yeah, lovely to see everyone. Thank you so much for putting this agenda together. I'm really happy to be talking about recruitment today. Thank you.
Commissioner, let's see here, Winbrock, and what is great to see you.
Evening, everyone. I just wanted to say it's great to see everyone and really looking forward to getting into the agenda tonight.
Okay. Then we have next is, do we have Commissioner Dominguez?
Yes. Hi. So I was talking to some people, and I was told that they were wondering how the police is supposedly improving on driving, their ability to drive. So like, I remember that at some point we were reviewing like what people complain about for the police, and that being like their driving ability. And we were all kind of wondering how that's being improved in any kind of way, because apparently one of the people that I was talking to said that he almost got in an accident with a police officer, but like nothing happened. But he's just like, yeah, like what's going on with that? So if that's like their biggest complaint, how is that being improved or addressed? And then the other thing is, I'm still hearing about people being evicted at the camps when they go to work and not being given a notice. So like I keep getting that complaint, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to say. And I was actually given 3 officers' names, and it's in my notes, but I'm sorry, I can't find where I wrote that note. But so I don't know what to tell them about that. And it's I kind of feel like helpless because I don't know what to say. So anyway, that's it. Thanks. And hi.
Okay. And then as far as my comments, and I know, and the chief is here. One of the things, one of the questions that came my way from a person that I know was when they were reading on the Eugene Police Facebook page, where there's information, there's y'all report on incidents and so forth. And there was an incident that was reported, and the question that came to me was that it's almost like there was 2 bits of information about an issue at a high school that was dealing with some Black students, and then Shady Hook. Am I saying that right? Shady. There was an incident that happened.
Sandy Hook.
Sandy Hook.
Excuse me, Sandy Hook. And the way they read it, it seemed like there was I wouldn't say misinformation, but they were getting 2 bits of information. One was from KEZI, from the way it was being reported in a news way, and then it was how it was being reported on the Facebook Eugene Police way. And if you looked at those 2 things, it was like it wasn't on the exact same page. So the question was, do y'all make, is there any type of collaboration between you and the paper? Or y'all just put out your stuff and they just put out their stuff and there's no connection on it?
So let me answer that question, and I can answer Bonnie's questions too, if she's interested.
Perfect.
So we can knock that out if that's okay.
Please.
Chair. From a driving perspective, yeah, we get driving complaints around officers driving. You think about the fact that, you know, we're often driving either at high rates of speed or going from point A to point B as quickly as we can. Not to mention, I think being a police officer is the definition of distracted driving between talking on the radio, navigating your computer, and trying to keep your eyes on the road. So yeah, sometimes we're not very good drivers. What I would say though is, you know, when over the course of the year, when you think about officers that drive, you know, upwards of, you know, 50,000 miles a year, we've been very, very fortunate to not be in as many collisions as one would think with as much time as you're driving. What we do in the way of training is every year we go through an emergency vehicle operations course where we do a lot of driving, a lot of high-speed driving, a lot of evasive driving, defensive driving. But even with all of that training and even all those road miles and experience that we have, you're right, every once in a while, like our community members, we're not very good drivers. Unfortunately, we're just in a vehicle that announces who we are, unlike the other drivers that we come into contact with where it's not. So we're constantly doing that. There's a discipline, there's a accountability matrix in the system for driving complaints, and we hold people accountable for that. And what we found more times than not is it's not necessarily policy violations more than it is a training issue, and we try to give training to people that are struggling with driving and holding them accountable if in fact there's some kind of a policy violation while they're driving. The second question, Bonnie, is police department doesn't evict people from camp. That's not what we do. The city does that through their outreach teams. The police department only is there as overwatch for a safety component. They're not there unless during the normal eviction process or trespass process, people refuse to go and become combative, then we would intervene. But the police department does not issue any evictions on those camps that are otherwise sanctioned camping sites like Washington Jefferson Park, 13th, 14th and Chambers, those types of things. That's all done by the city, and generally the genesis of those or the predicate for those would be either safety issues or health and safety issues that we decided, or behavioral issues that they've decided to go through the process and giving them the notice. And I don't know off the top of my head what that notice is. I think we've tried to err on the side of caution in those 72 hours. But police are only there from a safety perspective because we've seen a lot of edged weapons in our unhoused population that get brandished to our city staff when they're trying to either clean up and or regulate some of those things. So that's that piece. And Chair, your comment about the media stuff is the second part of your comment is spot on. Oftentimes we will put out a media release based on the information that we have at the time that we're willing to share that doesn't compromise the investigation. And then the media will go do their own digging, take our stuff, do their own digging, and oftentimes we'll report based on their perspective. And sometimes those aren't in alignment. So that we deal with that almost on a weekly basis where you know, the media, we have one purpose in putting information out, and the media has a completely different purpose in trying to garner support and clicks and subscriptions when they put stuff out. So we work with them, we try to collaborate with them, we try to adjust factual information when we can, and ask them to print retractions and corrections where we see appropriate. And all of that only happens if they're willing to do that. Sometimes we're successful, sometimes we're not.
And is that bridge, and this is what I've always found, is that bridge to people that they consistently collaborate all the time, or is a person picking up the phone and calling and talking to somebody different all the time?
On our side, it's consistent.
Okay.
The problem is we don't always get the same person on their side. So, you know, they've got, and understand the market that we're in, which is one of the smallest markets, entry markets for people. We see a new set of reporters, a new set of journalists coming in about every 2 years. And then they move on to bigger markets. So it's constantly trying to work with editors, people that are there for a long period of time. But most of our connectivity is with these individual journalists that are kind of cutting their teeth on this small market. And sometimes they do a really good job and sometimes they struggle a little bit.
Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Please.
What should this person have done? The one, like, should they have, like, what's the process for complaining about like having almost been hit by the police officer? Like, what should he have done then?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways to do that. I mean, one of the ways is always the auditor's office will always take those complaints, triage those complaints, and be able to classify those complaints.
And just take like the license plate?
Yeah. I mean, and we have the ability, if it's date and time and location, we have AVL, which is automated vehicle locating. We can GPS which vehicle it was and who's in that vehicle. So all we really need is just a date and a time and a location, and then the description of the driving, and file that complaint. And then we can do the investigative work to figure out who it is and figure out what it was about that incident that either aggravates that or mitigates that driving. And that's important for us to know, because we want to have conversations with those officers, because, you know, much like in the public, we don't write a citation to everybody that's got bad driving. Sometimes it just takes a conversation. So in this case, sometimes it just takes a conversation with a young driver or a young police officer that's a new emergency vehicle operator, and we can correct that behavior really easy.
Yeah. And then my last question.
Can I add something to that for a second, Bonnie?
Yeah,
There's
sure, go
also
ahead.
the annual police auditor's report. Every year they put out a report, and it has a pie chart of all the different types of complaints. One of which is one of the biggest pies is always about police driving, and you can look at that online and see that report and the specifics of them.
Yeah, we discussed that and I was just like, well, I hope they're doing something, because we talked about that and apparently that's like the biggest issue. But that's all I said, because I don't know what's happening there, but apparently I think you just informed me. So yeah, thanks. And then my follow-up is just, just I keep being told that they're supposed to be given 72 hours. And then according to the volunteers, it's just like they've been inspecting, and apparently like the people that are being evicted, like they're only gone because they're actually like they have jobs, but like they're still homeless. And they just leave, and then it hasn't been 72 hours and they're not given that notice. I was just wondering if I haven't actually seen the notices myself, but like, did the officers see the notices? Like if they was like previously like tacked on there or something, like, will they have seen that, and that do they only act after they see the notice or something? Because I keep being told that there isn't a notice. So
Well, okay, so two things are going on. So when we think about camping, we think about tent camping and we think about car camping.
Mhm.
And there's two separate set of rules depending on those. The 72-hour notice is like a process, is built into the process around our car camping, because we have to post and we have to wait 72 hours. The tent camping doesn't necessarily have the 72-hour rule in statute, but I do know that we have tried to give up to 72 hours for people to find either other place to go, gather their belongings, do those kinds of things. And in the cases where we're cleaning a camp where there's like nobody there, because on Fridays I usually go out and I visit these camps and kind of get a sense of what's going on. I will tell you that oftentimes the camper has had a lot of a notice to clean their stuff up or to move or do those things. But the officers are only called in by city staff when they know that it's time to go out and evict a camper or clean up a campsite. So the officers are not initiating that action. It's in support of city staff that have already issued notices. We've done the outreach. We've tried to place them somewhere else. For whatever reason, they're resistant or are choosing not to, or however that unfolds. And then officers are kind of notified, hey, we've got to go to WJ and we've got a couple campers that we need to clean up some camps. Do you have some officers that can kind of tag along, make sure our folks are safe? That's really, right now, that's really our role.
again, and this is for, I was referring to individuals, and you were referring to individuals too, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. And the only technically the only city sanctioned camping outside of our safe sleep sites and that we're managing is WJ and 13th, 14th and Chambers. And so that's where we do the majority of our work. Now, understand that we have trespass issues that occur throughout the city where people are on private property, and we'll get calls from those property owners and ask us to come out and ask people to leave. And we still do that because it's a trespass. But as far as the sanctioned spots, we're just there in support of city staff.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go, I have two hands up. Hopefully I get it in the right order. I want to start off with Jeremy. You have your hand up.
Thank you. What I wanted to say is Leah Pitcher had responded back regarding Bonnie's question. And that was that Bonnie had asked, you know, I'm receiving these complaints about the police officers. What do I do? And so sometimes those don't come in the same format that we would generally expect. So this is just a good learning opportunity for the police commission to remember that when we are receiving complaints, the proper intake for complaints is the police auditor's office. And please forward those complaints onto the police auditor. I know at the time it feels like I need to respond to this because I'm an appointed official here, but that is the correct avenue, is to send that through the police auditor's office. And so I know that was super valuable to Bonnie, but I'm sure that's valuable to other people at this table too, and I want to make sure it got communicated.
What if they don't want to be identified? Like some of the people are just like very hesitant to reasons why they keep talking to me is because they don't want to have anything to do with the police or anything like that. And I know that the auditor's like separate, but like they don't want that paper trail, I guess, if to put it lightly, I suppose. Like, do I put in the complaint for them?
Well, you know what, as it turns out, Leah's in the audience and she's got her hand raised. So I am promoting her to panelist, as she knows I love to do. And I'm going to let her to respond to your question directly.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Hi, all. Okay. I'm going to try to do video, but I am on my phone, so I apologize in advance for this. So yeah, Bonnie, there's two ways we can take anonymous complaints. We're allowed to do that. Once it is about one specific interaction, it's hard to stay anonymous, if that makes sense. So we can do it and we'll preserve anonymity as much as we can, but just to be frank, it doesn't always work out. So that's something to consider. We also do take third-party complaints. So I'm happy to take a complaint from you. So we take complaints however we can do it and however people are comfortable with that. Does that make sense? Okay.
Great. Okay, I'm gonna go to our next hand before we move on. Commissioner Mogart.
Yeah, so I feel as though, Dallas, you oversimplified the whole situation a little bit. It was a little confusing as to how it happened, but I know that there was a page that reported, a Instagram page that reported that there's an additional page that was created that had some racist themes. It was basically report your local Black kid. And then they had an inner dialogue, a conversation that took place. And during this dialogue, somebody had said some allusion to a threat to December 14th, don't be at the school. So I don't know that helps a little bit in this situation, but I as a parent, want to know what is going on with that situation, what has taken place, if the chief has any additional information about that situation.
Yeah, so actually we have two concurrent issues going on. One at South Eugene and one at North Eugene. And they're not the same people, but they're dangerously similar. And so I've got a enormous amount of resources right now tied up on both of these issues because of the aspect of it being online. We have to write preservation orders and subpoenas to get the information, and that is very labor intensive. So we're working with 4J on trying to better understand what's going on. So we have in the South, and I'm probably going to screw this up, so because there are so many going on. In the South Eugene one, we had a situation where we had what looked like a fake, either Instagram or Facebook posting that was almost as if it was, well, I think it was asking people of color, Black people, to meet at a certain location under the premise that it's a South Eugene group of Black people, and then a threat around that. So it almost looked as if they were trying to gather people with some kind of a threat around that. And I'm not sure that they were still in the midst of trying to identify who built the page, who's communicated through the page and doing that. But we've got a bunch of resources. SIU is completely tied up with both South Eugene and SIU, remember, a special investigation unit where our bias crimes are investigated, is completely tied up with South Eugene. And then most recently, yesterday, with North Eugene, with another Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat or whatever social media page that went on a rant about killing Black Jewish people and all sorts of nastiness there. And we are interviewing a suspect today with regards to that. So we've got two of these things going on. And what I would say is, right, wrong, or indifferent, what I'm seeing is a unprecedented amount of suicidal ideology, hate speech, and school threats in the 4J system. And we can all come to our own conclusions why we're seeing so much of that right now. But I've got a ton of resources tied up on that. So I don't have any specific investigative details for you, short of reaching out to my sergeant and just saying, hey, can I get a brief on where we're at? And I'm happy to circle back around with you if you're interested, and give you kind of a sense of what we've done and what we haven't been able to do. But those are always tough when it comes to social media, because if you don't preserve the data and get a preservation order quick, then oftentimes that's tough to capture.
Thank you. And I want to add, Commissioner Coulibaly, is there anything that you could be doing to kind of help get a little bit more info on what this situation is with the human rights?
Yeah, the Human Rights Commission gets a briefing from the Eugene Police and during our regular meeting about hate and bias crimes or hate and bias incidents. If you look at the hate and bias crime reports from the city, we have noticed an increase. There's a trend since 2-3 years now. And I would say my concern is more on due to the intense amount of staff time and also resources needed to investigate those kind of things, is how can the organization, the community-based organization, can engage in a conversation with the 4J, with the school district, to try to establish a quick reporting system that may allow the police to also react faster, a quick reporting system, but also a safe space for kids who may feel threatened or intimidated for reporting. I was seeing for what the last school shooting, when that happened, where there were all the red flags. We don't want something like that to happen here. And more conversation we're having with, maybe on one side, the community-based organization, the police and the 4J, and that would probably help to at least prevent things like that to happen. Because as we see the kind of threat and the age of the kids engaged in that, at least for what we perceive to be, it's worrisome. But the Human Rights Commission would certainly be happy to facilitate those kind of platforms.
Yeah, so, so as we go into our meeting next month, just kind of have something down as far as like from where we're at now to next month's meeting. I just want to make sure that we as a commission kind of know what's going on, because that's a pretty serious, this is a very serious things that are going on in our community. We definitely want to all be on the same page. Chief Skinner, did you have something to say next on this?
Yeah, Chair Boggs, I would just say maybe at one of your future meetings, it would be a great idea to have the Director of Safety and Student Wellness for 4J come and
Yes.
talk about the breadth of things that they're doing around threat assessment, suicide prevention, safety, because they're up to their eyeballs in anything that has to do with students, with threatening behavior or any of those types of things. They're involved in that, and I know that she would love to come talk about what they're trying to build at 4J to support students.
And what, do you have a name?
Yeah, her name happens to be Carrie Skinner.
Commissioner Shivers?
Yeah, thank you. I would love to see maybe tentative future agenda items on our agenda so that folks who aren't here tonight don't miss out and don't have to watch back the full playlist to know what's coming up. It also helped me personally, reach out to community members about, specific topics to help gather their thoughts before a meeting.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go next. We have our hiring process recommendations.
Oh, were we done with, sorry, Dallas. Was I supposed to give my opening statements during my liaison report? I can never remember how to do all of this.
You did, you said that y'all hadn't met and
yeah,
the report.
But I didn't know if that was the same as my opening because I know for CRB, I think we separate those out. So there's liaison reports and then the board member comment or opening statement.
Did you have something you wanted to speak?
I was going to point out because after hearing Bonnie's question that traffic accidents in non-COVID years are the #1 cause of on-duty death for patrol officers. Okay. So it is a more important issue, but aside from the point of just complaints, but also officer safety.
Gotcha. Okay, next we're going to move on. We have the hiring process recommendations, and that Chief Skinner, are you going to be going over that?
Yeah, I sure am. I feel like this agenda is kind of the Chief Skinner show for the next 20 or 30 minutes. So I'm going to try and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give staff a little bit of a break and carry their pail of water for them. So I've got some notes that I'm going to refer to that they gave me. And so what we did is we took your recommendations or a document that you created with some specific recommendations around hiring. And I've got some comments after each one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the recommendation, and it should sound familiar. And then I'm just going to give you a couple comments about that. And then I've got some just general information around what's going on right now around recruitment and hiring, and give you a little bit of a state of the union with regards to that, if that's okay. So I've got a series of recommendations A through K here. One was recommendation from the commission was to create a stipend or bonus for lateral officers that already live within the city of Eugene. We have a stipend bonus for lateral officers regardless of where they're coming from. So we are trying to incentivize people to move into our community and come from a variety of places. We certainly covet our Oregon laterals because they are already DPSST certified and oftentimes are able to hit the street much faster than an out-of-state lateral. But we try to be very equitable and create a stipend system for laterals because we know that that's important. We can't just hire all entry level and gain any ground. We have to have a good balance between entry level, which is our baby cops, and our lateral officers, which are already certified by some state with emphasis on Oregon State. The next one was to collect demographics on applicants and graduates to identify the disparity. We are now able to do that through NeoGov, which is what an applicant has to fill out as kind of the input portal for any job that we hire here at EPD. So it's not just officers, it's all professional staff as well. The only vulnerability to that is it's self-selection. We don't necessarily ask the question and try to identify that on the application. We give them an opportunity to self-select. And so that data is only as accurate as people are willing to fill that data out for us. So, and we don't want to ever make any assumptions. And so, but there is some data there that we can look at. C was the mentorship program to increase retention of officers who are traditionally marginalized. And the recruitment team is working on the proposal for a return of a formal mentoring program. And so that's I would say that's an in progress type of event around mentoring here at EPD. Utilize National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, which is what NOBLE stands for marketing openings and recruitment. And we currently reach out and recruit through that organization. We're always looking for specific contacts that we can build better relationships with that organization, but in general, we do leverage that organization to evangelize openings that we have in hopes that we get some interest. The next one is advocating for permanent recruitment budget for Eugene Police with City Council. I'm happy to report that the council on Monday night will be voting on a supplemental budget that has $150,000 specifically for recruiting and recruiting efforts to help us better find quality candidates for our organization. So I think that that's very, very promising at this point. The next one was fly recruit spouses and children out for tour of the facility and area. This is already in practice. We bring candidates to us. We try to invest in money in them, and where appropriate, their family members, because we recognize sometimes when they're making these decisions about being a part of the Eugene Police Department, it's a family decision. We very much are approaching our recruitment much like a college team would recruit certain coveted athletes around hosting them for visits, hosting them for recruiting visits. And so we're trying our very, very best within our budget constraints to treat them the best we can and give them a sense of what we're about and leave them with a really positive emotional feeling about us as an organization. The next one is considering advertising to people coming out of medical school that are just short of nursing. It says here, the recruitment team's looking into colleges and universities like this for recruitment possibilities. I know that they're fully engaged in looking at a variety of different colleges and universities and the job fairs that they host, especially ones that have specific programs to be able to be on site. To be able to do that, I'm really excited about the fact that after the first of the year and with some of this recruitment money, if passed, we are going to finance sending recruiting teams to locations and actually standing up a hiring process at the location instead of having that hiring process here. So we're actually going to go and garner support and if applicable and available, we're going to do a quick oral board and testing process there. So we make it as easy on the applicant as possible so that we can do that.
Yeah. Just interrupt. So this was my suggestion, and it got written down wrong somehow. It was actually a recommendation about masters in social work programs rather than medical schools. Graduates of medical school have all kinds of loans that they would need to pay off, but I know that Portland State and George Fox were the universities I mentioned with MSW programs that might be useful to make connections with.
Thank you for that clarification, because I don't know if it got written down wrong when Maloney tried to give me these answers or if we sent him the wrong thing, but I think that makes more sense to me than the medical school. Quite honestly, I didn't want to make any assumptions that was right or wrong, but that makes perfect sense to have social workers think about how they're going to be a part of public service, especially with so much social work that we actually are asked to do in the normal course of our duties. Again, we really do want to focus on those universities that have degree programs that fit nicely with the type of competency we need for law enforcement professionals. And it's not just about officer recruitment too. We've got so many other professional staff positions that need a lot of these skills that we would we would want to leverage this both for officer and professional staff recruitments. The next one is use Spanish subtitles to help spread the word. Older adults who only speak Spanish could share with younger generation. We actually just finished our first video podcast interview with LaKiss, and Alex Reyna has been a great partner of ours, and he does a great job supporting us. And we send him as much business as we can, just because Alex is just, we built that great relationship with Alex. And we had one of our Latino officers do all of that with Alex, and so we're really excited about how that's gonna come out, and whether or not we'll be able to garner some interest as a result of that concerted effort. Recruit from high school. It was noted that Eugene Police recruits for the cadet program, but you must be 21 years of age to apply. That is true. You need to be the cadet program. You don't need to be 21 years of age to apply. That's a reserve program. But the cadet program recently attended a career fair at Sheldon High School. For this exact reason, we'll continue to look out for opportunities like this in the future. Those cadets can often be really good entry level or kind of recruiting ground for us for future officers. And we've actually hired some of our cadets. We actually have a cadet that we hired in this most recent batch that we're super excited about. I think she's going to be fantastic. Contact University of Oregon and Lane County Community College Criminal Justice Program students and offer internships to students interested in learning more about that. We're developing a list of those colleges and universities to target. We are looking for opportunities within our volunteers and police program to do some things, and for some internship opportunities. We're just getting ready to try and develop one in our PIO office for maybe a journalism intern from University of Oregon to come in and do some of our social media stuff for us. So we're always looking for ways to get people involved. And lastly, around the recommendations is to encourage Commissioner Boggs and Commissioner Dominguez and V to ask non-law enforcement people of color to join the Eugene Police Department. And they put in here that the recruitment team is always on the lookout for help from our influential community members to help promote and recruit citizens of color in our community. So we'll do that. Let me finish before you go to these questions, because I see lots of hands up. Let me just run through this real quick. And it's a ton of information, you guys, and we should probably actually, if we get this in time, maybe throw it in your packet, even though this came in too late for your packets. We got 4 officers. This is going to take up some of my chief's report too. So I'll go somewhere else with my chief's report. We have 4 officers in the pre-academy right now. 1 lateral starting on January 3rd. Animal welfare records and 911 processes all going at the same time. So we're very, very busy. Cadet program is in background with 4 future cadets as well. We've got 5 entry-level police officers in backgrounds right now. And I think as this was written, they were in background, but I think all 5 of them have failed backgrounds. So we don't have any. And I will tell you that the majority of the issues we're seeing in background is not that people make mistakes. It's not that they can't recover. It's because they lied about what they did. And the truthfulness is, for me, truthfulness is a pass, no pass type of thing. And what we're trying to impart with our candidates is, you know what? None of us are perfect. Just own your mistakes and tell us about what you've done, and we can recover from those things. We can find ways for you to be successful. But the one thing we can't do is have you this early in your career already starting to be untruthful. That just is not working for me. So that's frustrating, but that's what's happening. The podcast in Spanish with Alex, it was Officer Perez Diaz did that, interviewed him, and that is being part of our most recent recruitment that was launched on December 6th. That's entry level, and so that's gone out. We're securing spots right now nationwide at military bases, because what we found is our military bases are some of our most diverse applicant pools we see. And so we're going to be sending people to the military bases to be doing some recruitment so that we can do those kinds of things. Military does a pretty good job of trying to do job placement for folks that are coming out of military service. So we want to take advantage of that. Recruiting team participated in Shop with a Cop this last weekend. And that's always a positive opportunity, because we have other police officers that come and do that. And I'm shameless when it comes to making sure I have the right people on my team, regardless of where they come from. We're spending a lot of money and time on getting quotes for booths and backdrops and all sorts of stuff that we need to do when we travel. We're partnering thing with City of Eugene for teams for wellness projects for police officers. I'm trying to look at some of these other highlights that you guys might be. The internship programs, we already talked about that. And we have a U of O virtual job fair. We attended a U of O virtual job fair recruiting for the law enforcement careers as well. And we're gonna, if supplemental budget passes on Monday, we're gonna be launching a community services officer recruitment that could mean that we need to hire as many as 10 to 13 community services officers to help supplement a different response to some of those patrol calls for service. So let me stop there because that's a lot of information just about recruiting.
Thank you, Chief. Before I go to the hands, there's two people that I want to make sure if they have anything to add to the hiring process, because I have not heard their take. Now, I might be throwing you on the spot, but Commissioner Winbrock, I need to know if there's anything you want to add to that list of the hiring process. And after you, I want Councilor Ye, if there's anything she wants to add to that list for the hiring process, because you were part of that conversation and you're that important to me. So I need to know if there's anything out there that you want to bring. I'm gonna start with you, Commissioner Winbrock.
Great. I was about to rock, paper, scissors with the council member. So I often lose at rock, paper, scissors. Just wanted to apologize for not being able to make it last month. And I also wanted to welcome Commissioner Coulibaly to the Police Commission. I'm a proud union member, classified staff member at University of Oregon. So I'm ashamed that I'm not wearing purple tonight, but at least he's wearing enough purple for the both of us. That's a long-winded way of, see, this is the danger when you let me speak. I would just say that I don't have anything to add. Thanks so much for the super extensive work that y'all did during the last meeting, and really excited for the update, Chief. Thanks for that. And I really appreciate a chance to add to it, but I don't really have anything to add at this time.
No problem. Councilor Ye, if there's anything you want to add to that hiring process?
Thank you. So first, Chair, I really appreciate you giving me an opportunity. I missed the last meeting as well because I had a conflicting other committee meeting that day. So I think it was a very comprehensive list, and I appreciated Chief Skinner's run through as well.
All right, thank you. Okay, now I'm gonna go to hands. First, I'm gonna have Commissioner Shivers.
Yeah, so Chief, the first two that we'll jump back to the very beginning of your list, the first two were mine. So I'd like to just clarify a couple of things on them. The first off is that I understand that lateral officers get a stipend. I am recommending specifically that officers who choose to live in the city of Eugene receive a higher stipend than their peers who choose to live outside of it. Perhaps even officers who are current officers who choose to live inside of Eugene rather than outside of it. And this is primarily to ensure community policing, that they're members of the communities that they police. I know my dad talked a lot about growing up next to a police officer sergeant. So, you know, he lived in a small town in Wyoming, and when he was, you know, he and his friends were doing things they shouldn't have been, they were not punished. And I think part of it is not just, you know, the color of their skin, but the fact that they knew people and the community knew them. And I think officers living inside of the community and inside of our neighborhoods is a great way to ensure that that happens. The second one was the recruitment demographics. I assume that, you know, these demographics are self-reported, and there's always some concern with that. I'm more concerned with not just initial reporting, but every step along the way. So that after the recruitment, we see how many officers we are recruiting, and what their demographics are. And then we also see when that gets pared down, either in basic training or background checks or wherever that is along the process, we can identify if at some point there's a steep decline in demographic parity of our population.
Yeah, I think both of those are excellent points. The first point, I couldn't agree with you more about having officers live in the city. Statutorily, I'm the only officer in the Eugene Police Department that's required to live in the city. And I would choose to do that anyway, just as your chief. One of the challenges, as you can imagine, is definitely the catch-22, where you live in the same city of people that you try to police. Every once in a while, you have those unintentional encounters with people that, when you're with your family, that can be really uncomfortable. And so some officers choose to live outside of the city. But the stipend piece, I think, is an interesting concept, and one that probably falls squarely within collective bargaining, because the majority of these folks are governed by a collective bargaining agreement that outlines all of the incentives that they do. It's not undoable. There's just a few different steps that we would need to go through, but I think your point is well taken. And secondly, I do agree with your assessment that it's important for us to know that at different stages of the process, are we disproportionately affecting one group more than others around how we're kind of starting to select, or how we're maybe, when we start with 50 and we end with 5, where do you lose them along the way? And is it disproportionate based on your demographic? So I think that's an important piece that we have the ability to look at, because once we start with the 50 and we kind of know what our demographics are, then that information can follow through that process and we can see maybe where some of those are. I've been really, really pleased though, because one of the things that this group recommended, and the ad hoc group, I'm not sure if it was a specific ad hoc recommendation, but this group for sure was talking about getting some citizen members in a part of our selection process, especially on the interview board, because that's so much of a subjective type of part of the process. It's not a pass-fail on the physical fitness, and it's not a pass-fail on maybe a written test, but it definitely is so much more subjective based on those interviews. And we've had some really good luck with Priscilla Hasselman, who is an immigrant from Mexico, and Amanda McCluskey, who you all know very well, and most of you know really well, has sat on that. And they've had some great experiences. The piece I would say that's really interesting is their feedback to us is, because of its being so comprehensive, they have to carve 4 days out of their week to spend with us to be able to get through candidates. And sometimes that's really hard.
Okay. Our next hand, Commissioner Dominguez. Question for Chief.
Yes, thank you. So just kind of piggybacking on what Sean said. So I also agree that it would be nice to have them actually live within the city for the same exact reasons that he was saying, but also because just another point is that, I mean, these officers, a lot of money is being invested in them, like 150,000, like you said. And also they get paid a lot. So it'd be nice if they were actually, that money that we're giving them as a city, they would also be, spending here within the city, rather than spending it in a different city. So I think that would just be really nice to continue that. And also that's also what I've heard from other community members say, that it would be really, so it's not just me and it's not just Sean that's saying that, but it's also other community members that are also really pro having being policed by people that don't consider them strangers, but actually kind of know them. And then I just side note, I had heard, or I was reading a report, don't remember from what year, but the report said that apparently during some riots that were happening in, I can't remember which city, it might have been somewhere in like Jersey or something, the military, there were 2 military groups that were sent in during some riots, and one of them was Army and the other one was National Guard. And the National Guard group apparently had killed 12 people, don't quote me on the numbers, but 12 people, and then the Army had only killed 1. And it was something to do with leadership. And apparently, like, the Army just has better leadership, at least back in that time, and also had more diversity. So I'm just wondering if maybe you've looked into specifically like which military groups you're actually trying to recruit from, because maybe there's like just, there's a difference, like the chair force and et cetera, all those weird nicknames that they have for each other because of certain reasons. So anyway, so something to look into. And then the other thing is, I was talking to another community member, and so we were talking about, and I actually don't know how to address this because I should probably be reading more of the police policy and procedure, but what it is that officers do on their off time is interesting. Like, are they Proud Boys, for example, or even if they're Antifa, to kind of keep it balanced, like, are these people declaring themselves against other groups and perpetuating violence and other groups? And I feel embarrassed, but like, where should I have read that? Like, where does it say, don't be part of Antifa, don't be part of the Proud Boys? Like, do we address that in any kind of way? Like, I know it's their off time, but at the same time, like, what values do they hold that are related to, you know, the values that we want to have for our officers? Does that make sense?
Sure. So, you know, part of that is deeply embedded in our throughout our entire process. And it starts with the character-based questions that we ask. We've really migrated away from asking very policey questions and more migrated to asking behavioral and character questions around a person's character. And so that's kind of where it starts, but really where we peel back the layers on somebody. And I will always tell you that for the most part, past behavior can be a predictor of future behavior. Where we peel back the layers is the extensive background investigation that we do. I mean, the fact that we dig in so deep into somebody's background to include all of their social media activity, talking to people that they would have never imagined we'd talk to. If there's any hint of any bias-related character flaws in any of those things, then that's a disqualifier for us. And then the last piece of that is the comprehensive psychological evaluation that they go through, where there's a battery of tests with our psychologist that looks for those indicators, and we get grades on our candidates based on those indicators to include other things like ability to deal with stress, the ability to show empathy, communication style, you know, those types of things. You know, by the time we're done and we finally give somebody a thumbs up, we feel like we've done as much as we possibly can. Now, once they're employed with us, the question becomes, you know, what happens if some of those behaviors develop between now and between after we hire them? You know, we get that good look on the front end. How do we take a good look at the midterm? And that's a little bit more problematic, because now we have a union that has some protections. We don't launch like a fresh background just to check up on you, but we do have some policy provisions in place that do regulate off-duty behavior and social media. We do have that, certainly on-duty behavior, but off-duty behavior as well. And we have obviously the complaint process that if anybody has any, both internally and externally, so that's the duty to report internally is something that's deeply embedded in our culture. So we have almost as many internally generated complaints as we have externally generated complaints around misconduct. And that's a sign of a really healthy organization, that we're doing these investigations, and the genesis of those investigations were an internal person saying, I'm not okay with what I saw, or I'm not okay with this behavior, and we do that. So there's not a cleaner way, there's not a better way so far for the kind of the midterm type of thing, but on the front end, so we're making the best decisions we can. It is an extensive process, and you should, if you're ever interested, you come in, and I'm happy to show you kind of what the background looks like. And the binder that I get is 3 to 4 inches thick of information that just, it's miserable. Trust me, it's miserable to go through it, because you get every part of your life looked at and turned upside down. And so but it's important. It's important work that we need to do.
Okay, and my last two things are, another community member had critiqued my my critique of the U of O game day thing. And we were talking, and he was saying, well, what if that's a perk? And like, you're trying to recruit people, and that's a perk. So maybe you should bring that back when you're not understaffed. And I was like, oh, that is a good point. So I would like to amend what I said before. But like,
on normal years, the game day extra duty is something that people generally sign up for as a perk. Yes, this year, these last couple of years are a little bit of an aberration because they're just flat exhausted. So I think we can split the baby on that.
Okay. And then finally, I'm not sure, I think you already kind of addressed this, but because it's written on there, it says a permanent recruitment budget. And I guess I was just saying, do we need a permanent recruitment budget? Like, can it just be like as needed? That's all, because 150,000 is a lot. And it's just like, do you always need 150,000 just kind of sitting there? That's all I had to say about that. So,
well, Yeah, 150,000 is a lot until you figure out how expensive it is to do some of these things. So what we've done, Bonnie, is this is a one-time ask in this supplemental budget, so it's not ongoing. I do believe there needs to be some ongoing money. I think what we'll do with this first 150,000 is we'll fine tune exactly what we think we need there. Now, this isn't my entire budget, because understand, within my existing budget, I have a recruiting team and I have a person that's assigned to recruiting. So all those salaries are built into my budget already. So it's not, I chose to make that recruiting. I could choose to make it do something else. This is separate money for travel, incentives, bonuses, our commercials, our billboards, our everything that we're doing. From up until this point, we found a way to finance that within our existing budget. And during the pandemic, we're about $1.7 million short of general fund revenues. And so it's making it really, really hard to fund those things. So that's this way of trying to at least one time fund those efforts.
Thank you.
Before I go to the next hand, I just want to add that what Commissioner Shivers said about that staying in the community as far as police officer, the feeling that I had when I had a home and when I drove into my neighborhood, which was off of Crescent and Crescent Meadows, when there was that state police car parked at one of the houses, and that was Officer Hamilton with the state police, and then another couple of Eugene police that lived in my neighborhood, I just felt a different type of safety than if you didn't have that presence. So it just does a lot for the neighborhood when that guy or gal is bringing in their car, they're parking, you can see it, you just know it. And I believe that those streets, you just drive a little bit slower, you're a little more careful, you just feel a little bit more secure. And for a person who's trying to be a burglar, you might kind of think twice, for that bicycle you might want to get that you see in the garage when you see a police car, parked for a few. Commissioner Wynn?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, I wanted to address F, H, and K, line F, H, and K. With regards to F, when you said, tour of facility, I understand that part, but the area, who's given the tour of the area to the potential new hires? I'll let you answer that first.
Yeah, we've tried to accommodate that with our existing staff. Oftentimes what happens when they come is they also go on a ride along. And so part of that ride along with an officer will be to tour all over the city and see the different areas of the city. And we try to give them that. So we may be trying to accomplish kind of the ride along and somewhat of a community tour at the same time with an officer, so that people can ask questions. That the questions that candidates often have aren't solely answered by officers, but oftentimes officers through their perspective are able to answer questions like, is this a safe neighborhood? Or what's the biggest issue with this area around crime, those kinds of things. So we try to accomplish both of those things.
Yeah, but as far as using that opportunity to encourage or to attract minorities, I'm wondering if and then you also have a potential hire who is single versus somebody who has who's married versus someone who has a big family. So that that changes everything for the tour. I think if you have kids, you might want to know, hey, where would my kids go to school? Where would they go hang out? Where would my spouse go, during the day? If they're not working, if they're working, fine. There's other accommodations they need to consider. I'm wondering if maybe contracting with a tour group, like a tour a group that might be giving tours of Eugene, for example, or maybe the U of O might have, the recreation program. What is it called? The program where they do a lot of studying of outdoor activities, or they might know a little bit more about the city than the particular officer actually. That might be interesting to look into. Line F, using Spanish subtitle. I'm wondering if you're talking about putting an ad on TV. Is that what you're talking about, or?
That's my assumption,
Okay.
Commissioner. That's my assumption. And again, I've got just some short notes from the recruiting team, but I think what our intent is to be equitable in the sense that when we send out our publications that are mostly in English, that we want to subtitle those and then also have Spanish only types of publications as well. So it's not an either or that we have.
Is there a reason why it's only Spanish and not Spanish and Chinese and Vietnamese or whatever,
No, I don't know the answer to that, other than the fact that I think we're trying to capture one of the larger demographics of bilingual people or other lingual people in our community. And I think we've identified, and I may have my numbers wrong, in that kind of 7 to 9% range of our community being identifying as Latino or possibly Spanish speaking. We certainly want to tap into that.
Okay. And then line K, I'm happy to help, spread the word about the recruitment effort. But I'm wondering if, maybe the three of us, Commissioner Boggs, Commissioner Dominguez, myself should meet up with the recruitment team and discuss it a little bit more as far as like how we can assist. If we talk to somebody, who should we, ask them to contact? You can't just be, oh, we're hiring.
Yeah.
There needs to be a little more structure to it.
That makes perfect sense. And I know that team would be excited to meet with you and kind of share what they're doing. What I will tell you is it's the first time, I think, in the history of the organization that we have this purposeful, intentional of an effort. And the people that are on that team come up from a wide variety of backgrounds and experiences, and they're super excited. And it's an extra duty for them. They're not paid to do this. There's not much perks involved in this. This is stuff because they believe in wanting to recruit and hire the very best people to be a part of the EPD family. And so I can almost assure you that they would welcome any kind of dialogue with you guys and would love to show you what they've got on their minds.
Thank you. And then lastly, I would encourage the people who are considering applying to check out our meetings, our recorded meetings. Just so they can see that, there are different faces, different, ethnic backgrounds representing the police commission. Thank you, Chief.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner. Our next hand, Commissioner Coulibaly.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I live in Paris, one of our first go-to solution was to contact schools, universities, and the kind of, they have a kind of school there that's like community colleges here, but it is a little different. So I wonder if there is a way for you to work with Lynn Community College Criminal Justice Program to either offer 1 hour, either ride along or internship to their first year students, and maybe two hours or a week to the students who are about to graduate. Because I think more we expose them to the opportunities they may have here working for EPD, and more engagement they have with the police department, maybe we may get a chance to hire, for a few of them to actually try to join EPD. That's kind of like the thing I have in mind. Maybe UVO too, the University of Oregon, can also be part of it. But if you're looking to hire officers in American Virgin Island, I'm available to go there and prospect for you. So,
as well as I will go.
Well, I'll put you on the list for our first recruiting trip to the Bahamas, US Virgin Islands, any of those, I'll put you on that list. And I love your idea, and it's one that the recruiting team is leaning into around how we better engage our universities and community colleges to get recruiting and get people some exposure to us. So I think what you'll see is as we continue to develop this strategy, I think you'll see a much improved footprint in our education system as a way to recruit.
Thank you. Now, what I'm going to ask is, Chief Skinner, do you have anything else to add for your Chief's report, or do we hit most of that stuff?
Yeah, I do. So are we at Chief's report, or are we at Citizens Academy overview?
We're going to go on right next with you on, because we're cutting to your report time. Why don't we go right into the Citizens Police Academy update?
Okay, I'm going to keep that part really short, and then I do just have a couple of comments for my Chief's report. Can I combine those two, Chair Boggs, and just knock them
That's
out?
all about it.
Okay, April 5th is our start date. It's 10 weeks. We're hoping for 30 or 40 participants. We're recording the classes as appropriate to allow for a virtual experience for people. I'm going to absorb the overtime to make this happen because I feel strongly about it. We all know the benefit of Citizens Academy and what that brings, and I would just encourage any of the police commission members that have that discretionary time to sign up and be a part of this first Citizens Academy, because I think it gives exposure. I personally think all boards and commissions that have a nexus to police should go through the Citizens Academy to better understand. And I've seen the proposed curriculum, and it is an exhaustive list of everything that we do, to include some Saturdays for experiential time in a variety of different capacities. Super excited about it. April 5th. Chief's report. This is, whether you knew this or not, this is Jeremy's last meeting with us. So Jeremy has recently taken a new job in the city manager's office, where he is going to be the Community Safety Initiative project manager. And so I'm so very proud of him for the growth that I've seen in the time that I've been here, to see that he has been offered and taken that job. I'm super excited that he's still going to stay connected to the Community Safety Initiative work, because I think it's going to transform our community safety system here in Eugene. And so I wanted to announce to this crew that this is Jeremy's last meeting. And so I wanted to just make sure that we create enough time to have a little bit of a love fest for Jeremy from all of you, whenever you are appropriate to do that. It's a little bit bittersweet for me, because he's leaving where he sits like 20 feet away from me. He's leaving here, but he's still a part of the really important work that we all do. And so I'm super excited about that, super happy for him and his family, and want to support him in that. And so from me to you in this public forum, Jeremy, thank you for, you've been here for the 3.5, almost 4 years I've been here. Every interaction with you has been professional, filled with integrity and ethics. And I'm a better chief as a result of you. So thank you for that. In the interim, I'm going to let you say something here if you can keep it together. I know I'm getting to know you too well. In the interim, Holly Matthews, who is my administrative assistant, I'm going to elevate her for a period of time to just help us with the administration of these meetings, packets and agendas, and running the meetings. And Jeremy has agreed to help cross-train Holly to do that. And so I'm going to be evaluating that vacancy. I'm going to be looking at the job description, making sure that it's contemporary, it's doing what we're doing. I have a vision for police commission work. I have a vision for what that position can do around planning police commission work. And I have a strong desire to build some diversity, equity, and inclusion work for that position. So I'm going to be thinking about either hiring somebody new or putting somebody in that position that can bring a lens, a DEI lens, to a variety of things within the organization out of the chief's office. So more to come on that. We're working on that, and it's a work in progress. But Jeremy, thank you for being an amazing human being and being an amazing police commission liaison. So I'm going to turn it over to you so you can say something.
Wow, what a send off. Thank you, Chief. It's no secret that I've loved working with the Police Commission. This has been the best job I've ever had yet. I have absolutely loved, you guys are like having a family that you get to come. I used to say back in 2015, I got to do this for 10 months and I fell in love with it because I fell in love with serving the people. It was every time the Police Commission would come around once a month, it was my favorite day of the month because it was when all my friends came to play. And it's very much how it has felt for the past several years, which definitely made for a hard decision to move along. But I knew at some point I would have to. And I love you, Chief, and thank you for all the wonderful things you've said. I think that like I told Chief, I was the best dad that I've ever been working for him. So thank you for modeling that and for your incredible leadership. And I've absolutely loved serving you guys. Sean, we had a lot of fun together. V, we had a lot of fun together. I've loved serving all of you guys. So just thank you, and thank you for this time.
And I want to add, Jeremy, as the current chair, thank you for all that you have done and assisted me with this role. And you've always, as I've heard, you've always been honest, straight, informative, to the point. Hopefully you learned some things from me, and I've learned many things from you. And the main thing is that you're still here in Eugene. You're not leaving the area. So you'll be bringing something to the table, and I have your number in my phone if there's any information that I might have. So we are connected, we are friends, and thank you so much for your service. I have some hands up that I want to go ahead and hit those. Commissioner Coulibaly, did you have something to say?
Yes, I want to say thanks to Jeremy too, that we worked briefly together here in the ad hoc committee. I appreciate your professionalism, and I know you will be a better asset, a greater asset for the city. I was asking myself why Holly was on the call, so now I know why. And I can't wait to have to work directly with her. And I want to encourage everybody here to join the Citizen Academy. I don't know what the process is to join, but next week I'll be graduating from the FBI Citizen Academy. And I spent time doing that, and I learned a lot. All the things that I thought I knew, I had to question them after talking to special agent, having a discussion about everything I had, all the stereotype, everything, biases I had against the FBI. But having that conversation helped close the gap. So I think it will be a very a good opportunity to get to know what the EPD does, how they work, and I will do my best to become one of the first participants to that Citizen Academy.
Thank you, Commissioner. Councilor Zelinka.
Yeah, Jeremy, congratulations. I when I first got on the commission a year and a half ago or so, I felt like this was very well organized, very well staffed, very well supported, and I really applaud your professionalism. I'm sad for the commission that you're moving on, but I'm glad for the rest of us that continue to work on the CSI that you'll be in that position. So I'll continue to see you. The commissioners won't, because that's a big role, and it's a very important role in moving that whole initiative forward. So congratulations, and you'll be missed. And good luck, Chief, replacing him.
Thank you, Councilor. Commissioner Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeremy, this is for you. I am really, glad we've met. I'm sad, but I'm also happy for you. can't thank you enough for everything you've done for the commission and for me. When I first joined the commission, you just made a really great impression on me. Your level of detail, like Alan said, the amount of work you put into, each agenda, each, meeting with the chair, with Chairman Shiver and ex-Chairman Shiver and myself, and you just you never complained about anything. I mean, no matter how much work we dump on your lap, you've never ever complained once. Your spirit is always high, and for that, I would miss you a lot, and I hope that we can always keep in touch. And I wish that the best of luck for you and on your next endeavor. I just know that wherever you go, the organization will find that you're invaluable, and that's speaking from someone who has worked with you and know you. You just have a very high level of ethics, and both work ethics and morality is just amazing. I'm blessed to have met you. So yeah, I will miss you tremendously.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Great words. Commissioner Winbrock?
Yeah, first I wanted to say congratulations, Jeremy. What an opportunity to continue to serve the city. Secondly, I want to say, Councilmember Zelenka, you're dead wrong. The other commissioners aren't going to not have a chance to see Jeremy. I've got his phone number. I've got his email. Yeah, I'm going to definitely take you out to lunch for congratulations. Don't get to call Councilmember Zelenka out enough. But yeah, I'm blown away by the culture that
I'm going to be wrong on that one, Ian.
I'm just blown away by the culture you've helped co-create here. One where you've always made me feel invited, and you've always created a culture in which I felt everyone's voice was valued. And you may not agree with where we're coming from, and sometimes you and I have respectfully disagreed over the phone, but you've always maintained an attitude of professionalism, a culture in which everyone's voice and opinion is valued. Not only have you never complained, but you've also been one to encourage people to pursue lines of inquiry and thought, because yeah, at your core, you're really someone who values service and values others above yourself. So I feel that, those are such important values to have, no matter what you do in your life, but particularly in civil service. So I just wanted to say, congratulations, you will be missed. Yeah, Chief is just looking for other ways to shoot himself in the foot, because you can never be replaced, of course, and whoever is your successor is going to have big shoes to fill. But yeah, super thrilled to be able to work with Holly. Really excited to see Holly move on and help continue the work of the commission. So looking forward maybe in 22 for me to take you out for coffee or for lunch to see you in person. And yeah, your work will certainly have a legacy here at the commission, and I'll be excited to carry your torch and invite whoever comes after you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Winbrock. And last, before we move on, I have Councilor Ye.
Yeah, thanks. So everyone's already pretty much said everything, Jeremy. I can't I can't agree more with what everyone said. I will point out that the not complaining is going to be very useful when you move to your new job. So maybe that one you can hold on to. I'd appreciate that. My favorite part of police commission was that 10 to 15 minutes before and the 10 minutes after. And part of, was that being able to talk to you, Jeremy, and learn you're just a great person. And I'm so glad to have gotten to know you. And I'm glad I'll be seeing you in the future, and congratulations.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Counselor. Chief Skinner? Chief?
Yeah, I was just going to take 2 seconds and let you know as I figure out what this is going to look like and make sure that the job description is squarely where we need it to be for our next selection. There is a very high likelihood that some of you on this call will be asked to participate in that selection with me. I think it's important to get some input from existing commission members on how I fill this vacancy in the chief's office. So it will not happen without that inclusion.
Thank you.
This would be my third person working with this police commission from this position. Jeremy, I do want to say, what's up? You didn't let me know. I thought you would have told me about something like this. I mean, how many hours have we talked on the phone? I am gonna miss that. Jeremy and I have a lot in common, and it's I've enjoyed our talks, and I will miss you as well. And I hope the best for you in your new work. And thanks for always being mindful of me being a vegan and just all the other things that you've really taken care of for the commission and for reaching out to me. I know that when you called that we were going to have a long and important and mind expanding conversation. So I'll miss you. Thanks.
Miss you too.
Well, thank you very, very much. We now.
Oh, wait, can I say something quickly? Very briefly, very briefly. Okay,
Please.
so thank you, Jeremy. You were always very encouraging, and we have a little bit in common, mostly due to our having attended the same high school, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And anyway, I just appreciate all the support that you gave me, and I asked you a ton of questions, and I would email you a ton of questions, and you would help me answer them all. It's like just lists and lists, and I would follow up, and you would answer them. So thank you so much for that. I also feel like it'll probably be hard to replace you. So yeah, I hope I do run into you at some point. That would be really nice. And just talk to you, because I also really enjoyed our conversations. And yeah, and thanks for being so intuitive. So you have a very good intuition, and I hope that, you don't lose that. So yeah, thanks.
Great. All right, folks, we're going to move on. Our next subject is going to be on peer support team procedure 11.23 review. And I'd like to welcome our speaker on that, and that will be Emily McCauley. Emily?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm gonna quickly just go through a quick debrief of what exactly it is that our team does, just to give you guys some reference on that. And then you guys can let me know any questions you have about the updates on the policy. Like the chair said, my name's Emily McCauley. I've worked for the city for 18 years. My paying gig is at the 911 Communications Center. Started as a dispatcher, worked as a dispatcher for 12 years. 6 years ago, I promoted into the supervisor's office. I'm currently a shift supervisor out there. And my side gig, my real passion that I love to talk about is peer support. I've served on our peer support team for 12 years, became the supervisor 6 years ago, recently added a co-supervisor, which I'm very happy about, to share the load. On the sworn side, Sergeant Roy Wright is co-supervising this team with me now. This team really has two functions. The first function is peer counseling. The second function is to promote employee wellness and resiliency within the department. And our team is made up of 35 members, department members, and that's professional staff and sworn. It crosses all ranks and divisions. We try to have as much diversity as possible in order to support in as many areas as we can. The team was 12 people when I took it over 6 years ago. It's now 35. And I would like to grow that even more if possible. Couple of things. One, all of our team members are critical incident certified. So what that means is they attend an actual training that focuses on both individual training and group training. And this is sponsored by the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. And it's based off of a curriculum that was started with the military and then moved into first responders. It's been around for a lot of years. And so what that does by having them certified in that area is that it allows them to be covered under the ORS, the Oregon Revised Statute, that talks about peer counselors and the confidentiality that's attached to that. And a couple of things have to be present for that to happen. They have to be working in a capacity that's named in that ORS. So one of those positions, and they have to be certified with the proper training. And then they have to be acting in the capacity of a peer support person in order to be covered under that. And so all of our team members have that basic training. Many of them have additional training that it is pretty much anything you could imagine that has to do with employee wellness or resiliency, all the way through suicide prevention, intervention, you name it. A lot of them have extensive training. And we really focus on 4 different types of interventions. Just real quick, we do a diffusing. That would be like the end of shift. We had a large incident. We just want to touch base with people in a casual way, offer them resources, kind of stabilize them before they leave shift, and see what kind of follow-up we might need to provide. The second is a more formal debrief, which is called a critical incident stress debrief. This is when we bring in the involved personnel. That could be fire and EMS, it could be other agencies, it could be dispatch, it could be officers, CSOs, you name it, anyone that was involved, detectives. And we actually sit down with our peer support team members, a mental health professional and a chaplain, and we go through a formal stress debrief. The purpose of that debrief is not a tactical debrief, it's to actually address the emotional trauma that was associated with whatever the event was. The third type, which is really uncommon, but we have done them in my time here, is called a crisis management briefing. It's more of like a town hall meeting. This would be if we had a large event that affected the entire department. You needed to put out basically a large message to a lot of people at the same time in order to get them on the same page. A couple examples of that would be a line of duty death. That would be a perfect time to do one. Another time where we participated in one was about in 2017. We had an incident involving Eugene Springfield Fire, where we had an active shooter that opened fire on a crew when they arrived on a house fire in Springfield. And Eugene Police was involved in that, as was the dispatch center. But we actually did that on behalf of the fire department. That was a mutual aid requested for them. And so we held some debriefs for them in order to give their department lots of information. So you give them facts about the investigation, you give them resources, you talk about employee well-being, that type of stuff. And then the fourth intervention that we do all of the time, all day long, are one-on-one interventions. And that's just our one-on-one contacts. That's checking on people, that's taking care of people, that's counseling, doing resource referral, those types of things. So those follow-ups that our team members are doing all day long on shift and off shift with our employees. So those are our main functions. Our goals are to provide resources and referral, so to get them to the right place. So that could be to a counselor, that could be involve taking some time off under our traumatic leave policy. It could be a variety of different things, but just making sure that they get the correct resources, them and their families. We also support EPD families in that way. And then also just building resiliency. So it's important to think about when you're building resiliency, what are the results of that? There's a lot of research that shows, the more resilient your department is, it improves morale, increases retention, lowers sick leave, lowers IAs, improves employee physical and mental health, all types of things that are linked to that. There's even some research that shows that it lowers on-the-job injuries if you have employees that are physically and mentally healthier. So earlier the chief was talking about recruitment and what does that look like, and how do you choose the right characters, and what do you look at when you're looking at employees. And from an employee well-being, there's that initial hire, like he talked about. What do you do before you hire these people? But what happens in the beginning of their career and their mid-career and their end of their career, and the progression of that, and the amount of trauma that law enforcement employees see in a career is more than most people see in a lifetime, even in a short period of time. And so, I always refer to it as the mid-career self-implosion. And what I mean by that is there's lots of things that happen when people have trauma that they haven't processed. There's substance abuse, there's IAs, there's low job satisfaction, there's divorce, and there's even suicide. Lots of things that are a result of not unpacking those things. So our team's mission is really how to teach people to be resilient. And, you know, we want people to stay in this career, but we also want them to come out of this career in a healthy way, and, you know, physically, mentally, with their relationships intact. So that's a lot of the focus that our team has, is how do you keep people healthy through that career. Do you guys have questions about the mission of our team?
I don't have a question, but when I was listening to you talk about that crisis management, when you're talking about your 4 types, number 3, the third part.
Yeah, a crisis management briefing.
It was almost like I was hearing what's needed at some of these high schools right now, with some of these incidents, where in a large dormitory, not dormitory, where, you know, wherever they speak to the whole high school about the, you know, where the principal, folks with human rights, Chief Skinner, folk from the council or whatever, can sit there and at least have a conversation about some of these things that are going on. Because when you talk about 2 schools that are having these type of problematic issues and they're not being addressed, your team is doing that type of work right now. And it also affects us indirectly when it comes to hiring, because if someone has a family and they're hearing this type of stuff that's going on with the schools, that wouldn't make me want to move too fast, you know, when you have that, or at least hear what we're doing to address those type of things.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Go ahead.
The good point, the good thing about a crisis management briefing is the number one thing that it does is it dispels rumors, because it allows people to all be on the same page about the facts of the event. So
Right.
You're simply giving the facts of the event, talking about any investigation. You're also giving information. So what's being done about it. So if there's plans being made, if there's changes being made, things like that. And so you are getting everyone on the same page. And then additionally, you're offering those resources. So if you did do something like that, if you had, you know, a team, there are teams in the community that are designed to do that. Many communities have an actual crisis team in the community that their mission is to serve other community members. And so in this type of situation, that would be perfect for a team like that to do. Our mission generally is to serve internally. However, we do a lot of mutual aid for other first responder agencies across the state and within our county. But there are teams that are formed to do that, and that will respond to scenes and to other things in order to accomplish the same type of goal.
Thank you. Commissioner Coulibaly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Emily. I have a small screen in front of me, so I don't see your full last name. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to say that this is very, very, very important. It is important to have that for first responders, and listening to you, I have only one question / concern, which is about peer support and counseling, because there are 2 different elements when it comes to critical incident. And I'm so glad that you talk about the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. Here, I have 2 certifications from them. I've been through the group and individual training, and I'm certified. So when I used to work for Oregon State Hospital, we had what we call HART, Hospital Employees Response Team. What we do after a critical incident, we go to the staff as a peer, and we talk about, we let them vent, we let them talk, we let them share their experience, we let them kind of process their trauma. And we have been through that too. You know, people who are selected to assist those people have been through that. We know, we listen, and we share what worked for us, and you know what resources are out there, like you said, and a lot of other things. But we call it psychological first aid. It's not counseling, because counseling is so necessary. It brings a lot to the person who is part of a traumatic situation that we, because we're not trained and certified and whatever to provide that service, we don't present ourselves as counselors. So that's the only thing I kind of see here, because you know, the story behind the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation is a group of first responders, firefighters, were going home from a happy event. One of the co-workers got the baby. They went there. They had a party with them. They were in the same bus, and the bus got into a very, very bad accident. And some of them were really injured, some died, and their co-worker had to respond to them. They came on the scene. It was so traumatic that you know, they start creating that, you know, that platform where people can share their own experience. And at Oregon State Hospital, where you have staff assaults pretty much every day with injuries, we realized that 70% of the staff members who had contact with someone from her team come back to work the following shift. But people who do not have contact will, you know, keep calling out sick, whatever, because they have to deal with the trauma and they have to deal with a lot of things. So that's the only thing I'm kind of a little concerned about is counseling versus peer support. Where peer support stops, where counseling starts, and or maybe you train your members to be counselors, but we did not. That's why I want to put this out there.
Yeah, you make a great point. I understand what you're saying, and you're absolutely right. We're not counselors in the fact that we are certified like people in the profession. We're not professional counselors. We're not psychologists, things like that. We don't have degrees in it. We have a certification to be a peer counselor, and that term can be confusing, but it's adopted from the language in the ORS, which is why they call it a peer counseling session. But essentially it is psychological first aid. We use stress first aid. It's interchangeable, psychological first aid, stress first aid. It's the same type of idea in that you're stabilizing someone who's in crisis or processing trauma or experienced trauma in order to make a handoff and a referral if needed. So you're basically a go-between between a professional. In order for it to be clinical, you know, things have to generally progress for 5 weeks. So they have to be prolonged. So someone who's just experienced a trauma might have a lot of signs and symptoms that could be consistent with, you know, depression or anxiety or PTSD or all of these things, but they're not considered clinical until they've hung around for 5 or more weeks. So part of our job is in the beginning when that's happened, you know, to give them that support and resource and normalize it, talk about it, make sure that they're watching for those signs and symptoms. And then when they're progressing, also addressing that to make sure that they get that clinical intervention. So the counseling title is really just adopted out of, you know, how the ORS is written, but we're not providing counseling in the sense that you would think in the clinical setting. However, we do a lot of referrals in that realm.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Emily, thank you so much for being here with us, and thank you and your team for what you guys do for the officers. So one of the things that I know is that, according to studies, suicides for police officers have gone up up and up. And one of the studies was done by the Ruderman Family Foundation. So from what I understand about suicides is that, those who ask for help are not really ready to take that step to commit the suicide. And those who don't ask for help are usually the ones who are standing at the cliff ready to jump. So without them asking for help, how do you know? I mean, how did the peers know that they needed help? I know that this is a long conversation, but you don't have to you don't have to go in depth, but you maybe can shed some light on it for me.
Well, that's the difficult thing. We don't always know. There's also a huge amount of unreported law enforcement suicides, in the sense that where they were maybe reported to be accidental and not deemed a suicide. There's not a really good nationwide tracking of retired law enforcement suicides, which the numbers there are actually really high. So if you were to look at any of the numbers, it's actually going to be way lower than the true number. The tricky thing is that it's a very delicate thing, and you're right that most of the people that are asking for help are not in a position where they've made a final decision to do a completion of a suicide. And our team works with people really closely. Part of the intention behind having people embedded in the department and having such a large team, having them across all divisions, is that what I coach our people to do is to have relationships and to know people, to know their baseline, to know their behaviors, to know their patterns. Because if Tigger becomes Eeyore or Eeyore becomes Tigger, that's a huge sign that we have some major traumas. And so when we're watching people for behaviors and behavioral changes and trying to determine, if someone who never signs up for overtime, they're now all of a sudden signing up for a lot of overtime. Why are they signing up for overtime? Are they avoiding home and something's not good there? Are they in financial crisis? What's going on? We do a lot of education to our supervisors, our line level supervisors that see these people every day, that you need to let us know what's going on with your people, behavioral changes, in hygiene, in sleep, in tardiness, sick leave. I mean, there's tons of things that can be indicators of good or bad behaviors and declines in people. And when they talk about the 4 sources of stress, there's 4 sources of stress, and anytime those sources of stress overlap, you're gonna not get a good result, in the sense that it's going to probably cause some type of psychological injury. Doesn't mean you can't recover from it, but if you ignore a psychological injury, it then becomes an illness. So when we're talking to people, we're not only paying attention to what they're doing on duty, what type of incidents they've been responding to, what's going on, are they involved in an internal investigation, that type of stuff, but what's going on at home. Do they have a sick kid? Do they have an illness? Do they have a divorce? Do they have substance abuse issues? All of these overlapping issues are really indicators of what's going on. And as far as suicide goes, you're really just encouraging a culture of, see something, say something. And, that's something that's newer to the police culture, because it was always like, hey, you just kind of keep quiet and you don't get in other people's business and that type of stuff. But, I've been here for 18 years. Like I said, EPD's experienced more than one suicide in that time, unfortunately. And in all cases, there was lots of people after that said, I saw the signs and symptoms. I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. And so the indicators were there. They're almost always there. It's very rare that someone completes suicide and people say, I didn't see it coming. I didn't see any indicators. So our team is the eyes and ears and the boots on the ground of how we can just track those types of things and really try to intervene and get them the proper help before we have that type of incident.
Thank you. Commissioner Shivers?
Yeah, thank you. So we're talking about the, some very difficult and important work. I was wondering if there were lower levels of support that you offered officers, particularly, officers from, communities that don't reflect Eugene's and might be feeling out of place, or officers from a variety of cultural backgrounds.
Yeah, I mean, we've done a fair amount of mutual aid to smaller agencies. And so a lot of areas don't have peer support teams in Oregon. There's only a small portion of areas that have teams. Here, Lane County has a team, and Eugene Springfield Fire has a newer team that I help them kind of bring up, and then Eugene Police, and that's it for Lane County. So we do a lot of different mutual aid, but we also spend a lot of time with families. A lot of the work that we do and focus on is with spouses. So whether that's because they're a lateral, or because they're from a different background, or because they're trying to fit in with the police culture, or whatever the type of stressors that are coming up, we spend a lot of time trying to focus on how we can connect them with either other department members or things like that. Part of the things that we've done is like different family events, like where, bring your spouse, bring your kid, that type of stuff. We're also held some debriefs for spouses. So like after an officer involved shooting, and bringing the spouses in and doing a separate stress debrief for the spouses in order to kind of make some of those connections. Because, I kind of think of law enforcement very similar to military in the sense that it's a deployment when you're going to work, but instead of being a long deployment, it's just a short deployment, and you're going back and forth between civilian life and police life. And sometimes those connections don't connect at home. They don't connect to your culture. They don't connect to your community members. They don't connect to your family. And trying to make them understand what exactly it is you're experiencing and how you're bringing that back into the home is very difficult. So our team does a lot of trying to bridge that gap between families and community members and the officers.
Yeah, my question probably wasn't as clear. Connecting that to the recruitment conversation that we were having earlier, particularly recruitment of diverse officers. In our last meeting, we talked about peer support and the necessity of peer support, particularly for Black and Brown officers who might not find the kind of community that they're used to when they move to Eugene.
Yeah.
Do we have that support?
Our team, to be honest, isn't as diverse as I would like it to be. And partially that's a reflection of the department, right? So our department probably isn't as diverse as we'd like it to be because we have the community that we have to choose from, right? And like you said, when you look at our community proportionally, it's white. So, and that doesn't just go for race and culture, that's also for gender. So part of the challenge that we're experiencing right now on our team is we don't have any female sworn officers on our team. We have in the past, but currently we don't. So those are pieces that we look at when we go to recruitment of our team members, is not only trying to look at rank and trying to look at division, but also how do we get unique backgrounds, people that have experience in this area, whether it's a spiritual background or it's a cultural background, those types of things, things that we're starting to look at as special skills. So whether that's they're bilingual, because that's come into play when we've needed to contact people and spouses and families. So all those different pieces we're looking at to try to diversify our team. So it is a piece we've talked about and looked at, but it's not a piece that I am comfortable about where our team is right now.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. And as we go into, because we'll be moving along, I was given a request to be on time by Dr. Garcia, so I'm gonna try to stick to us getting out of here on a timely manner. So I want to make sure our questions are swift and not long, extended questions. So next, Commissioner Dominguez.
Sorry, can Ibrahim go before me or whoever?
Yeah,
Can I go
sure.
after one more person? Sorry, or whoever.
You sure can. Commissioner Coulibaly.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to say one thing to Emily, if you don't mind that I call you by your first name. I really cannot see your last name on my screen. This is very, very important, and I really praise you for doing this. I know working at Oregon State Hospital, sometimes it made the difference between someone coming back to work ever or quitting, or even someone taking their own life. You know, I've seen it. I've seen situations where I lost coworkers that we tried because we had a critical incident and we missed that contact. And I wanna emphasize that I don't know how long your program has been part of EPD. I got my certification in 2016. I don't know if that it was before or after that, but I do want to emphasize to first thank Chief Skinner to either initiate this or let it continue. That most of the time when something happened, and now I'm talking as a union person, I have my union purple, windbreaker on. When something happened, the everybody else focus on the person you're serving, but your staff, the people working for you, sometimes do not get enough resources to rely on to type in. I get, at the state hospital, when a patient who is mentally ill hurts someone very badly, we all try to, de-escalate, talk to the patient and see how we can get the person to a safe place. Until we came with the heart team to also try to engage with our coworker. What's going on? How you feeling? And overall, like I said, some people process trauma, after all, with delay. They go home, then they see the shame and whatever, everything that happened, and you don't know how they're gonna react to it. So thank you for doing what you're doing. And I think more people should be engaged in that within the police department, because more peers you have to know that I'm a part of the support team to call this person and stop by during the patrol and say, hey, how you doing? Can I get you grocery? Can I get you water? What do you need? It helps people to not only recover from trauma, but also come back to work motivated. So thank you for everything you're doing, and I appreciate EPD continuing this program.
Thank you. Now I'm gonna go back to Commissioner Dominguez.
Thank you. So sorry, how long has this program existed?
I don't know the exact start date. I was hired in 2004 and the team was in place. I believe it was put together sometime in the late 90s was the original. I think the policy was 1999, the earliest policy that I saw for EPD. The team has changed quite a bit. The team was really a reactive team. When I got on the team 12 years ago, it had to be a large event that triggered it. And it had to affect several employees, and it was more of a, you kind of flood to the scene and you kind of stand around awkwardly while the officers are still doing their job, and then you try to make a contact with them, and then, about once a year you had a critical incident stress debrief, and that's really what it was. And when we used to be called CIRT, which was Critical Incident Response Team. We changed it to a resiliency team, and the reason being is that you have to build resiliency on a daily basis in order for people really to process trauma well. And so a lot of the things that we do now are more on the proactive end of just making it part of our culture. And the thing is that accepting assistance from peer support is voluntary on the employee's part. It's not mandatory. We're not doing fitness for duty type evaluations. And what our team has really tried to do is just created a culture where this is the norm. And now that we've hired so many new officers and laterals, they just know that this is what we do at EPD. We check on our people after. They're not alarmed by that. They're not alarmed by hearing from our peer support people. They know that that's going to happen. And they know there's going to be a stress debrief for certain incidents. And we do them for all types of things. We do them for on-the-job injuries. We're doing one on Monday for a child death that we had this week, all different types of incidents. It doesn't have to be a shooting, something like that. And any incident that's emotionally significant to an employee. And it can be 2 employees or it can be 20 employees. And what we do is we plan it, and whoever comes, and it's confidential, and they know that that information is going to stay there. And even if they come and they sit and they don't say a word, they're still hearing from their peers, and that's still important to their emotional process. And some people will talk a lot, and some people will not talk at all. And then after, we offer those resources for them to take home, talking about seeing those signs and symptoms and what they need to look for and what their spouse needs to look for and things like that. After officer involved shootings, we have resources that the union will give the officer to take home to their family to say, these are the things that your family needs to watch for in you, as an indicator of if you need assistance from this. And so just trying to normalize that. And now it's a thing where people, an officer will say, I'll get a text and they'll say, hey, when's the debrief for this incident? Because they know that that's what we're going to do. And so just making it a part of that process. They're going to have a tactical debrief. They're going to have a stress debrief and that kind of stuff. And that's kind of what we do. So just making it just the normal part of our everyday.
I was talking to one of the officers, and he didn't really seem, I don't know why, but he didn't give me the impression that he was very aware of this program, which is interesting to me. He only said that I am required to, the only time that I'm required to see a counselor is during an officer involved shooting, and that's it. Other than that, I just get support from friends and family. So I was just wondering, like, how is it, because from the way that you make it sounds like everybody knows about it, but then but I only talked to one officer about that. So, and he kind of just didn't sound like he knew about it. So I guess I'm wondering, yeah, how is that advertised? And then just a follow-up question is, how did you take away the stigma from it? And I guess, because I wonder if the people that are quiet, maybe there's still a stigma and maybe that's why they're quiet, but I don't know. So like, I'm being weak, or am I just being stoic? I don't know who I am in this scenario.
I think there's lots of different reasons why people are quiet, and that's individualized. There is still stigma attached to it in the law enforcement culture, and you're still going to get your salty dogs, is what I call them, where they were raised in a culture where this wasn't a thing and they didn't do this, and it was the B&B, which is buddy and booze, and that's how they handled trauma. They went to the bar after and they drank beer and then they went home, went to bed. And so you're never going to completely get rid of that. But part of working on that is just basically normalizing it. I can't speak to if every single person in the department knows. They should, because we're out there and we talk about it. However, I will say that in COVID, things got a little bit funky with local academies and people going to DPSST and coming back and things like that. Generally, our team gets into the local academy, and that's where we present what our team is and what we do. And we talk to the officers and call takers when they're brand new. But
this one was not brand new, just
okay. Yeah, we did miss out on a few of those recently. We were in our current one. We just did that a couple of weeks ago. I can't imagine a world where a seasoned person would not be aware of our team just because of how active we are and how often we have debriefs. But, I will say that it is possible. As far as the mandate for counseling, our team does not mandate any counseling. Our team, the work that we do is not to require psychological evaluations. That is a requirement, not from EPD, but a state requirement for officers that are involved in officer-involved shootings. And so currently that is the only mandate that EPD has, unless there's some type of fitness for duty that comes up. But our team does not do any mandatory psychological evaluations or counseling sessions. We simply provide people with the resources if they choose themselves to seek those resources.
There are like little microaggressions that happen in the community towards officers. Like the one that I was talking to, he was telling me that just people will be very rude regularly, and will also try to incite something, even though they try to keep calm. And then this is sometimes where they sometimes they will have outbursts, because sometimes, I don't know why, but that was like the last straw, and then they just flip out a little bit and they'll get that reaction that the person was trying to coax out of them. So I guess I'm wondering, like, those are like little microtransgressions that add up, and I'm wondering can you address those in a way? Because I mean, those outbursts are the ones that we see on film, because they're being, people are trying to get those outbursts, and then eventually they do get them. And that's what the officer was saying. It's just like these little microtransgressions just add up. So I guess I'm wondering, is there anything that you can do about that? I'm not a counselor, I don't know anything about it, but I imagine that there must be coping skills that could be provided to the officers so that they can handle that better, like, trolls essentially.
Can I take this one, Emily?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the other things the council is going to be voting on for the supplemental budget is a bucket of money in there for officer and employee wellness. And we're working with PCERT, and Emily is involved in this decision-making as well, is that we're getting ready to launch probably the first ever intentional mindfulness resiliency type of curriculum within the organization to bring that type of coping mechanisms and opportunities to create greater resiliency amongst our officers that are dealing with that cumulative stress that happens on a daily basis, so that we don't get to that breaking point and actually do something or say something that is unrecoverable. So it's a work in progress right now to build a formal system within the organization that constantly and annually will expose officers to coping mechanisms and skills to better equip them with coping. And so we're really excited about what that looks like. And PCERT and Emily are taking the lead on helping inform what that looks like.
And if I say something, I hope that
we're gonna have our last question.
Okay, I hope that it includes counseling, more counseling. Okay.
Yes, Dr. Garcia, thank you for your patience.
Yeah, no problem. For the record, I did not request, at least not in this particular meeting, and although I do appreciate ending on time. Thank you, Emily, for your presentation. I wasn't sure if we were transitioning at some point over to talking about the policy, but I wanted to go ahead and I had some comments on the draft as well. So on section 11.23.3.1, duties and responsibilities, general duties. In the first bullet point, it says convey trust, anonymity, and ensure confidentiality. And I just wanted to check to see if you were intending anonymity as well as confidentiality, because I understood there are different levels of privacy, and the ORS only mentions confidentiality because anonymity is so hard to guarantee, obviously, in situations in which humans are involved. And so I was wondering if you have special provisions for anonymous as well as confidential conversations, or was that just an extra word?
That's actually verbiage that was carried over from the previous policies, but it's situational. I mean, generally, we don't, in most cases, people don't know who is doing counseling on another person. Even within our team, we don't share the sessions that we've had, just maybe that, yeah, we've been talking to so-and-so just so they know that it's covered, but we generally don't share that. The only time I get it shared with me as a supervisor is if I'm assigning it out, or if there's a mandatory reporting situation that comes up. So there's a lot of work that we do that in that sense is kind of anonymous. We also allow for department employees to ask us to check on someone that they're concerned about, and that happens frequently. And we don't share with that employee in most cases, hey, so-and-so said, you're acting kind of odd, they're worried about you. Like, our team is very versed in doing that in a manner that's just like a really casual way to kind of evaluate, like, hey, where is this person at? And am I seeing the signs and symptoms that their coworker has relayed to me that we're concerned about? And so we do a lot of that work. And I think that that was the intent behind that, in the sense that we're really, people can come and ask us to, on their behalf, be an advocate for an employee that they're concerned about, or maybe they don't have a relationship with them, but they know they were involved in a traumatic incident, or that they're acting odd or out of the ordinary for them. And so we do that work a lot.
Gotcha. Thank you. Also, I was wondering, so in the last bullet point in that section, PSRT members should ensure that they care for themselves. It is highly recommended that PSRT members check in with a mental health provider at least once annually. I was wondering, do you also have a practice of bringing together PSRT members for sort of group meetings with each other, kind of a peer counselors counseling each other sort of scenario?
We do. We have bi-monthly meetings where we do a lot of team business and vision work and what our team wants to accomplish. But after we do stress debriefs with employees, we then have a peer support debrief after that, where we debrief each other ourselves, because we're taking on so much secondary trauma. And that isn't a mandate. That's why it's highly recommended. But the majority of my team members see a counselor on a regular basis for basically emotional discharge, because they're taking on so much trauma. A goal and vision of mine, if budgets were allowed and there was no roof on that, would be to have an annual wellness retreat with my entire team. And that would be like a 3-day retreat where they would receive training, and it would be a form of a debrief and some stress relief, and probably do all different types of stuff, including mindfulness, yoga, all those types of things, in order to try to process some of that stuff that they take on all throughout the year.
Trust falls.
Yeah. Well, thank you, folks. We're going to move on. If y'all have any additional questions that you might have, I would say just send an email to Jeremy, or we can send an email directly to Emily, and I'm sure she'll get back with you on any other questions that didn't get answers tonight. We want to move on for time's sake. Our next part of our meeting is our Police Commission progress report, and Jeremy will be running with that.
Right. Well, I hope everybody has it in front of them. So, in trying to be, what's that?
Page 9.
Yes, page 9. So this is a familiar format. You've seen it before. It goes in front of council at least once a year in packet form, and every other year to be presented by the chair to them. In this case, given that I was going to be leaving the commission, I thought it wise that we do a quick review of all the work that's been done. And I have to say that it is rather impressive how much you've gotten started on. I didn't check boxes on here because we are 6 months in on a 2-year work plan. So I didn't want to put that anything was really concluded at this point. So I marked things as in process, but as you notice, well, I was going to say roughly about 71% of your plan you're already working on or have started the work on. And so this is actually, there have been times when we are 6 months or we are a halfway through or 1 year point, and we haven't touched on this many topics yet. So this is impressive, and I think kudos goes out to your chair for, I mean, every single planning meeting we are sitting in front of this asking how we can tick more of these boxes and what can we be working on. So I just wanted to make this as simple as possible for whoever I'd be handing the torch to, so that they could see what work you have done at this point. And that way they've got a template so they can go ahead and continue to add the work. And of course, I'm not leaving the city. I am still here. So I would be happy to help them when it comes time to help guide them. And I have the templates from the previous reports. But as I recall, and I have two counselors sitting here so they can tell me if this is correct or not. As I understood, you guys really appreciated having this matrix when it got to council, because it was easy to see what work had been done and what needed to be done. So that's why we've continued to use this this format. And yeah, so the only reason I haven't checked anything is I just feel 6 months in is too early to be saying complete, when many of these things like your diversity, equity, inclusion, you're going to go on to do that once a quarter. Or frankly, we've been doing that more often. So anyway, so I've given you a chance here to review a little bit. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Just a comment, I was at those meetings as well.
You sure were.
Maybe you
Is
should just
that,
change the boxes to started instead of complete.
You mean rather than in process? You like the word started?
Oh,
instead
either
of-
or, either or.
So right now, and I realize you can't, I could probably bring this and share it, but right now I've got in process instead of complete. And then I figured you guys can go ahead and, I'm sure that the chair will be helping when they put that final report together, or put the progress report that goes out here in 6 months, to mark some of those as checked or complete before it goes to council.
so 17 is complete?
Well, 17 is technically not on your work plan, because that is a parking lot piece, right? So that wasn't something that's required to be going back to council, but these are pieces that hit the parking lot. And I just happened to notice that one, the HB 3355, that civil crowd management, uniforms, officer identification, making sure the police is in line with House bill. So we are currently in line with that House bill.
Right.
So that's why that's checked as complete. But if you would like, we could change that to in process if you have more work that you want to do there. But we are in line with the House bill. So
Commissioner Wynn.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeremy, this is a very small detail, but I'm wondering if in process would be better as, you know, I mean, instead of in process, it should be in progress.
Oh, okay.
I'm just wondering. I know that it used to be used interchangeably, but now is mostly, you know, people mostly use in progress. I mean, yeah, in progress instead of in process.
And I have no problem with that. Changing that verbiage to in progress.
In progress.
Correct.
I feel, part of me goes, well, should I ask everybody else what they think? Should we get one last motion while I'm here?
No.
No.
Okay, we're going to skip to the next subject matter, and this deals with so we're all perfectly clear. Obviously, I listened to everything that we talk about. I try to address where I can, but then there's some things that I like to stay within our circle of we can make a change, because if not, I'm not that chair that's interested in a record that keeps playing and playing. So what was brought to our attention, everyone remembers, Commissioner Shivers brought to our attention the issue dealing with the downtown boundaries consolidation. Okay, now let me just give you my take on this before we keep talking about this more and more. The discussion was brought up because it was brought to our attention I knew nothing about these boundaries. So thank you, Commissioner Shivers, for bringing it to our attention. When he brought it to our attention, it was because police had told him on a walk along issues that they had with the map, okay? So I wanted to see what could we do as a commission to find out a map that was fine for all parties, where it makes sense. So That discussion has happened. Thank you, Commissioner Shivers. The information has gone now to the council. The city manager is aware of that boundary map scenario. And unless, so we have done our due diligence as far as I'm concerned. And because other than Councilors Zelinka and Ye, who are listening to every bit of this information, so we'll come to their tables or desk, whatever. I don't know how much more we can do. Now because we have got that process rolling, and I believe that that's kind of it, because we would not be the people. Now you're talking with counselors who do those changes. So if you briefly want to say something, Chief, that could be added that I don't know about, then we'll be talking about something that we can't really go any farther. It's in the hands of the council. Jeremy or Chief, please speak on that.
Well, I'll just go real quick just to say that out of your bringing this topic back, the city manager has been reminded of this, and not that it had gone away. The work with, so this issue has been is being looked at the moment, but I think you are correct that this is something that needs to be handled at the council level ultimately. So, because they're the ones that can make the decisions about the ordinances, and councilors, please feel free to weigh in, but ultimately that's where this work is going to lie. So,
please, Commissioner Shivers.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that having brought this forward, I agree with everything you've said. I think the next step for us as a commission is on our next annual work plan to include it as something that we have, as something we've done, and use that to remind council and the city manager's office that it's happening. I'd also like to say that the officer that I did the walk along with was Sergeant Smith, who is now with us, which is fabulous. And with Jeremy in the manager's office, looking at community safety, I'm glad to know that we will have receptive ears still concerned about the little details that I bring up.
Thank you so much, Sean. Councilor Zelinka.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how the conversation went and where it was, but and Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong. I think one of the conclusion we might have drawn was this is a heck of a lot of work to go through and change all these boundaries, because they have to be in ordinance. That means you have to have public hearings, and then you have to have another work session, and the council and unless there was some overriding big issue that we were trying to solve, or problem we were trying to solve, this wasn't going to make it to the top 10 list of things that the city council needs to deal with, because we got so many things on our plate. So I think that's kind of where it got left.
Thank you. Councilor Ye, only because this is something that I truly believe is in you and Councilor Zelinka's hands and the other councilors. What would you like to weigh in on this?
Yeah, Councilor Zelinka's right. We did have a conversation about it. My understanding was that staff's input was that some of the maps are very difficult to change. Some of them might be a little easier, and that, like he said, it's not a high priority, but when we do talk about downtown, that might be a good opportunity to look at a few of the maps, the few of those boundaries that are a little easier to change, and see if we can't do something. But I think there was a general consensus that we would never get all of them to be the same. So, but yeah, I appreciate you guys reminding us to make sure that it's brought up next time we talk about downtown.
Right, and often we're not in a position to change, but we definitely are in a position to remind. And that's this is one of those things, folk, where we can remind them often. Commissioner Kalabali, you have something on this downtown maps?
Yeah, very quick. I want to say that maybe now is the time for the city council to think about what is downtown, what, are the perimeters of downtown and try to adjust everything according to that. Because if we muddy things for the police, more they will be confronted to confusion and people pushing back and whatever it is. So it's probably time for the city council to think about putting some clarity so everybody knows if something is not allowed downtown, that means it's between this and that, instead of, you know, having the police officer to pull their phone and try to figure out what applies and what doesn't, and have people applying different rules to different areas. So I think it's probably good to keep pushing for the city council to maybe define what is downtown, where is downtown.
And that is great. But the one thing I want to make sure we're all on the exact same page is that we're going to stay within that circle. This police commission is not going to remap downtown Eugene. And there are people who are elected that deal with those matters. And we've kind of been told where those matters stand when it comes to that map. So I'm not going to talk about the map anymore in this venue. So do you have something to share, Councilor Zelenka?
Yeah, just one more. I think the council does understand the issue that if you're standing right here, you can't do that. If you stand right there, you can. And it was confusing, and the council understands the issue. It's just a matter of, we've got limited time, limited resources, and limited staff time to take on issues. And so this is on the list, but I don't imagine it's not going to be high on the list of things to accomplish over the next year.
Gotcha. I'm going to move forward. Vice Chair, did you have anything that you want to go over on outreach?
No, I just want to remind everyone to please make sure you're reaching out to different parts of the community. And I see we're at time. So if there's anything, is there anything anybody wants to share with us really quickly? Bonnie?
Hi. So I heard back from Beatrice, and essentially she said that come January or something like that. So she wants me to write a script for what did she call it? Sorry, I just got the email today. Okay, essentially there's what's it called? Okay, essentially there's like a feature that they have, and it's like for the Spanish speaking community. And essentially what we're gonna do is just do like a minute kind of PSA saying, this is what the police commission is and what it is that we do, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm gonna write a script, and then she's gonna help me edit it. And then we're gonna do a second one where we're actually trying to recruit people. So again, this is what the police commission does, and this is how you apply. So for the next round of police commission, we will hopefully get some more Spanish speaking people. At least, yeah. I can't do anything on the other subjects because that's the only other language that I know, unless German, but never mind.
Dominguez, sir. Okay, next we have Commissioner Wimbrough.
Hey, all, just two things really quickly. I'm part of the police policy and incident review for the University of Oregon. Have been talking about the recruitment efforts and some of the challenges between EPD and some of Bonnie's concerns about event management. One of the things that I wanted to bring up is Oregon 22, the World Track and Field Championships happening this summer. There's a ton of work being done by University of Oregon's resilience officer and their whole subset that does disaster and emergency planning. Andre DeLuc, who's their chief resiliency officer, and his team have secured a grant from the Department of Homeland Security to do a series of tabletop exercises, including a lot of cybersecurity work, which is not the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about, the hundreds or the 200 different nations coming to Eugene, but they've said that it's really important to focus on cybersecurity. So just going to keep getting updates from them on the U of O side and share those with the group, and would be really interested to learn a little bit more how EPD is interfacing with the University of Oregon around Oregon 22 in the future. And then to Bonnie's comment too, for the future, I'd love to know more about the specific instances for volunteer groups, or you said volunteers around specific places that our unhoused neighbors are living and their interactions with different city employees, whether they be Public Works or park ambassadors or EPD. I know that not every volunteer is going to feel comfortable sharing their name or the organization they're affiliated with. But for me, it's really important to understand the context that they're operating in. If you're talking about someone who works with Black Thistle Street Aid, who's talking about someone at the WJ encampment being asked to move because they're out of compliance with the CDC's emergency guidance for persons experiencing homelessness and COVID-19, and they're not in the 12 by 12 squares that are graded out, that's a little bit different than someone who's been asked repeatedly to move when they're in violation because they have a vehicle that they're camping in close by Washington Jefferson Park. And so the reason that I bring that up is because of two things. One, last night, we held a meeting of the Whitaker Community Council about specifically Washington Jefferson Park and the non-EPD components of folks interacting at WJ. And so I just put into the chat, we had Kelly McIver, who's the new Incident Command Public Information Officer for Unhoused Response. And so Kelly's comments, Bonnie, you might take interest in them, but I think to all commissioners kind of understanding the new Incident Command structure and how the entirety of the city is breaking down a lot of silos for the way that we're responding both at the city level, but also the city and the county working together on this issue, because I think it contributes a lot of understanding towards kind of how and when EPD comes in. It's very much at the tail end, and also speaks a lot to how park ambassadors and Public Works and Parks and Open Spaces are working in tandem to make sure that our unhoused neighbors at Washington Jefferson specifically, but generally at sanctioned campsites around the city, can be able to safely move to safe sleep sites. So I just think it's a really interesting use case, specifically because it's Washington Jefferson's the largest site in the city where there's sanctioned tent camping going on, but also it touches a lot on kind of the continuum of care and where and when EPD factors in. And then
Can you email me because the questions.
Jeremy, would I need to move for 5 more minutes?
Yeah, we need a motion to extend.
So moved.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. All those opposed?
None.
Nay.
So we're gonna be out of here in 5. We'll be out of here in 5 more minutes.
Thank you.
So do we have any questions, or then I'll go with closing comments? Okay, so I will start with closing comments. Commissioner Shivers.
Yeah, I just wanted to take the opportunity of my closing comments to thank Jeremy during his last meeting. I've talked about it before. 2 years ago, I came down with my first attack of MS, and Jeremy was absolutely crucial for me getting through that, just as a personal support. Not to mention all of the work and support that he gave me on the police commission. So I wish you all the luck in the world. I will do my best to stay in touch, because I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I go to the next commissioner, Jeremy, did you have something?
I was just saying thank you. Thank you, Sean.
Great. And before I go to the next commissioner, I want to make it very, very public that you are not necessarily off the hook, Commissioner Shivers, because I will definitely be calling and reaching out to you with the absence of Jeremy, and I know you'll be a great team member and help me. Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Wynn. Closing comments.
I just want to say thank you again, Jeremy, and good luck.
Commissioner Dominguez.
Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you, Chief Skinner, for the update on the academy. I hope that you will be taking the example of the FBI and really advertising that to community leaders as they do. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Mogart.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to the chief for reaching out to Alex Reyna. He and La Equis are doing great work, and I'm glad to know that you're working with them. And Jeremy, it's been fun and an honor. So we will miss you here.
Thank you. Commissioner Winbrough.
Just wanted to say welcome again, Ibrahim, and congratulations and farewell, Jeremy. We'll keep in touch. Thanks so much.
Dr. Garcia.
Yeah, I'll just add my gratitude to Jeremy. For the record, I put some into the chat earlier, which he hates because it doesn't go into the official record because it doesn't show up on YouTube when these get posted. But it has been a pleasure, and I wish you well as you move on.
Thank you. Commissioner Coulibaly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I don't know if this is the right time to talk about it. But I do want to address something that's happening tomorrow because of the International Human Rights Day. I run an organization that's called Human Stories, and we have decided to put together a law enforcement panel. And because this is the police commission, I think it's probably the right time to share. Chief Skinner is going to be on the call. Chief Shearer from Springfield will be on the call, and the FBI will be on the call. And on this panel here, we're going to have V and Bonnie part of the panel to engage with them around diversity, around hiring, and around police accountability. And I'm sharing that because it is very important for us if we want to make changes, if we want to see anything happen within the police reform, criminal justice, whatever it is, we need to have conversation. And I put together this panel because I thought I still think that we need to talk to each other regardless of how far apart we are. I lost 60% of my board. I have to say that they quit because they think I'm giving police a platform. Today they quit 60% of my board. But I do want to emphasize one thing here is all of us here in this panel, we think that it is important to make changes through policy, through advocacy, and through activism. We do not have to limit ourselves. And I think all of you who want to be on the board, it's not the Human Rights Commission, and the two of the commissioners here who will be part of the panel will not be there on behalf of this commission. I want to make that clear. They will be there as individual advocate for the community, and if you can join, that would be great. Look for Human Rights, Human Stories on Facebook. The link is there to join. And thank you, Chairperson Boggs. I appreciate everything you do. I appreciate your leadership.
Thank you. You sent me an email about the what was attending, as well as Commissioner Wynn. Thank you for the email. I love to be included on that type of information, so I'm in the loop. But as far as I was concerned, as long as y'all knew that you were not representing the commission, but you are 100% a Eugene Police Commissioner, so you're representing yourself. And I love the information. All I ask is share with us as a group what you learn, what you gain, best practices, and so forth. So we're all a part of your efforts. And thank you for your time for doing it. That's what I'm getting is the rewards of not having to do it and getting all the information from you three. So that we applaud. So next we have closing comments. Councilor Zelinka.
Yeah, again, thank you, Jeremy, for your service, and good luck in your next job. I'll see you over there. Just as a matter of, this might seem pedantic, but the city doesn't call Washington, Jefferson, and West 13th sanctioned campgrounds, calls them temporary Jennifer, maybe you can help me, temporary COVID encampments or something like that. So they're not sanctioned in the sense that people use it, that's okay, you can stay there. They're there for during the COVID pandemic. And so it might be a matter of semantics, but to a lot of people, it makes a difference.
Thank you. Councilor Ye, closing statements.
Yeah, thanks. So last thanks to Jeremy before we see him in his new role. And just I'm looking forward to seeing everyone in 2022. So.
Yes, folks, this has been a great 2021. Looking forward to working with all of you in 2022. So bring all the great ideas to the table as we meet again in January. And thank you so much, Jeremy, I'm about to say JC. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for all you've done with us. And thank you for supporting us, Chief Skinner, with all your inside stuff. And this concludes our meeting.
Thank you, Alice. And I appreciate you, man. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Police Commission.
Thank you.